Hey guys, and welcome back to Torchlight. I kind of made a bit of an abrupt cut last time because I noticed I was going over time. Not really, but I was approaching it. So, yeah. Let's just finish this now. This would be tempting to people. Like, it says it increases all damage by 2%, which sounds good. But the necklace I currently have actually gives me a bonus of 3 to dexterity. And because I'm a ranged class, every point of dexterity gives me 1% damage anyway. So the 3 dexterity is actually 3% additional damage by itself. Plus dexterity increases critical hit rating, I think, so bear that in mind. And I don't want that. Okay. Yeah, nothing terribly good. Oh well. Yeah. No reason to hang on to gold though, because as I said, my preferred level method of resurrecting is saying resurrect at the entrance to this level, which costs me gold. So the less gold I have, the less it costs me, basically. Ooh, let's see what she has to say. Isn't worth the risk, but why won't my husband see that? There are other ember mines in the world. We should take Albert and find work at one of them. They may not be nearly as rich, but at least they're not full of monsters. And this is Albert, by the way. I really find this game quite lovely, having these little things that are completely meaningless, which is something else that I've seen games sort of stop doing, especially big games. Not all of them, but I've seen a worrying trend where anything that's not entirely relevant to like the main plot and the main story is entirely removed. Like little side things, little conversations that don't mean anything at all. It's like people expect anything to be meaningful to the main story. So if you see like an old woman talking to her grandchild by the side of the street, you would expect something relevant about that. And so if it's not relevant, developers tend to not put it in. There we go. So let's head further down. I think
the beauty of these sunken gardens shines through an age of dust and decay. Why did they fall to ruin? Could the same corruption that affects me now be responsible for this centuries-old destruction? The thought that this blight could be so ancient unnerves me. But if it consumes me, I must go deep enough that I can never escape to do harm. And there is still hope. A fool's hope, but I cling to it.
okay. As always, if that wasn't loud enough, you could read the text. I'm hoping you might want to switch to full screen. Like I'm playing at 1080p, but I'm only recording at 720p. Because as I said, I've been really busy recently, so I want my uploads to be a little faster, which is why I'm not uploading in 1080p. I could record and upload in it, non-issue, but that makes the files twice as big, which makes my uploads take forever. And oh dear, it doesn't seem like we can go on here. Well, of course not. So let's talk to Syl. Syl, whatever.
These ruins, I've read of them. This is Etheria. Their discoveries are the foundation of my art. Oh, I wish Brink could see this.
Nope, I killed him.
I have reactivated these 3 rune gates, but it is the 4th that leads deeper. Some threat must have caused the Assyrians to disable it. The destination glyphs are missing. We'll need to find those missing glyphs to continue. Search the active gates while I study this chamber. Hurry, there are many obstacles between us and the Ember Forge below.
Great. So, at this point the game has kind of split up. It doesn't matter in which order we do these portals, so let's just start. And so each of these portals is connected to a single level, followed by a shorter glyph room. And more poison guys. So as you can tell, I am still slightly over leveled for this section of the game. Okay, so that was who I needed to kill for the robot guy. I do not like the corrupt shamblers, like the ones that release poison upon their death. They are nasty. Okay, and I definitely don't need these things anymore, so let's haul them over to the pet. Nope. Nope. Definitely don't want melee weapons. And I really don't want the two-handed ones either. Like in any case, I think that's one of the design problems they have in this game, that two-handed weapons are largely at a disadvantage against one-handed ones. The only reason I'm using a two-hander at the moment actually is because I found a very good one and I haven't found a very good one-handed pistol. But usually, I just want that gold. Thank you. Usually the two-handed weapons, I think they tend to have slightly higher damage, but just not enough to compensate the fact that dual wielding gives you two weapons which you can enchant. Now you could enchant one weapon twice as much, but as you've seen, there's always the disenchanting chance, so there's a limit to how often you can enchant a weapon, and obviously the number of enchants could thus be twice as high if you're dual wielding. Plus the damage of a two-handed weapon is not twice as big instead of one-handers, so having two of them really does tend to mean more damage. Plus, at least most classes have the sort of dual wielding thing you can put points into, like I did. Which I think also has an effect when using a shield and a gun. But yeah, which increases damage further, and there's no skill like that for two-handed weapons. Yeah. This should be the way forward. And I have to say I really quite enjoy this tile set. Like this whole overgrown ruins kind of thing. I find that quite enjoyable. Looks very nice and tranquil, and like the game has this sort of comic-y visual style to it, so it's not photorealism, but I really like the way it looks. And I think I'll be right back. And I'm back, and you should have barely noticed that someone at the door, so I'm not quite at the point where I'm ignoring that sort of stuff because I'm recording. Actually, I'm kind of surprised how many people who make videos apparently do that. It's like, oh, the doorbell, well, I don't care. Even from what I've heard, some people just turn their doorbells off while they're recording. I don't quite get that. It's not like even if I don't have any particular packages that I'm expecting, like new game releases or whatever, even then I would always keep the door open for stuff like that. Oh, tree boss. Now these aren't the nasty trees which do the mana draining field, so they're quite good. Goblin Flinger. It's a cool name. Oh, and I'm liked, apparently. Which of course, in the days of Facebook, sort of switched meaning. I think when this game was released, Facebook wasn't even as big yet. And I still can't spec my Ricochet. That takes another level, I think. No, 2 levels. I'm 15 now, so 2 more levels and I can increase this one again. So I guess ranged weapon expertise. I was thinking of buying the new Dark Souls. Now, just talking about new game releases and such. But it's like $60 for the console version, which I'm not gonna pay. I think I paid about, what, 30 for Dark Souls 1 with the DLC. And that package also included the Witcher 2 Enhanced Edition thing. So, like, they just came bundled. It was Witcher 2 Enhanced Edition and Dark Souls Prepare to Die Edition. Both, you could get a PC version of that pack or the Xbox version, and I got the Xbox version. And I know, PlayStation's better, but there are certain games which don't run on a PlayStation, and I wanted to play one of them, so that made my choice rather easy. And I don't have this sort of, I don't know, automatic hatred against anything made by Microsoft. I know some people do, but quite honestly, I do have that sort of for Apple products, but not as much anymore now that Steve Jobs isn't in charge anymore. And for some reason, some people really like the guy. I don't get it. He was like one of the most antisocial, forgive the word, asses ever to own a company. It baffles me to think that people really like the guy. I mean, I don't hate him enough to like wish him the kind of death that he apparently got, but people complain about Steve Jobs being such a rich ass when,
You have sprung a threat.
to paraphrase a video I'd seen, he gives away the net worth of Apple to AIDS research. Like, Bill Gates is rich, but like he defines the word. I guess he should still be the richest man alive, and also richest person. So he's also richer than any woman. But I don't think it got to his head, like some rich people become absolutely terrible because they are rich. At least it doesn't make that impression with him. And of course, all I have to go on, pretty much anyone has to go on, is the public image. So it might be in private he's really a terrible person who, like... oh, a tie. Fair enough. But I don't want it. Cast speed... Nope. And also nope. And my pet is almost full, but I'm waiting until he's completely full. Or until I need to go back for more identification scrolls. But yeah, Steve Jobs, as far as I know, for his entire career has not given a single penny to any sort of charity. Despite being very much rich enough to afford it. And he always had this half-assed excuse of, oh, it's such an obligation to give to charity, so I'm not going to give to charity because I don't want to feel forced to do it. Which is just him saying, I want to keep my money. I mean, in some ways there can be a situation where if you're invited to some sort of benefit gala or something, you're pretty much expected to give, especially if you have much. But that's because that's the right thing to do. It's not like some sort of, I don't know, made up idea that for some reason you have to give money. It's because these people have a lot of it and they can afford to give away millions without even feeling it, without their quality of life being affected by it at all. Whereas the quality of life of others, who the charity is trying to help, will be improved drastically. So saying that because there's sort of pressure and you have to give, he doesn't want it, so he's not going to do it, to me sounds like a very flimsy excuse for, I just want to keep all my money. And then there's that matter of, like, Steve Jobs parked on a parking spot for disabled people for pretty much his entire career, and he wasn't disabled. He didn't have like he wasn't allowed to park there, but he always bought a new car every 6 months, so he never actually had them registered. He didn't have like the registration plate things, because apparently if you, like, for the first 6 months you can drive without them, because when you buy a new car you have a certain amount of time to register it, and he never did. He just bought a new car, and that's the sort of thing, missed that one up terribly, that makes him a really terrible person. And there's this stuff, of course, about, like, people who praise him like to say that he was determined and he was a perfectionist and he expected perfectionism from all of his employees as well, which makes it sound like a good thing that he forced them to stay in, and he made life miserable for a lot of his employees at times. Like when there was a release coming up, stuff like, you're not gonna go home and see your family until this is done, and then, according to stories, which I wasn't there, so I'm inclined to believe them, but I can't prove them, so it's like he locked his employees in their offices because they weren't finished, and he forced them to take unpaid overtime and stuff like that. From what I heard, he had a very high suicide rate among his employees. Like, noticeably, statistically, significantly higher than would be expected in the software development, hardware development businesses. Just because he was being so pressuring towards his employees, forcing them to stay in, forcing them not to go on holiday, stuff like that. And I can't describe that as being determined and perfectionist. That's just being an ass. And it's not a word I like to use. It's kind of, it is a strong word, but someone who goes around telling his employees that they can't go home until they're done, and he's gonna lock them in their room until they're done. It's not like, he can do that to himself, and that makes him a little eccentric, but
Your pet.
fair enough, I guess. And that could be seen as sort of being a driven and perfectionist kind of guy. And that's not inherently bad, so I wouldn't object to that. What I do object to is the idea that people have that this somehow makes him like a good CEO when he forces others to do the same thing, and that I just don't get that, why people think that. And there we have the Glyph of Turning, which the glyph rooms are a lot shorter, as you can see, than the I guess the main rooms, and in them you will find these glyphs, and you will need all 3 of them to activate the next portal, as I think you probably already guessed. And we found Bill. So yeah, I mean, I know people like Apple products. I personally don't, but I think that's a matter of opinion. There's nothing inherently wrong with Apple products. They are slightly overpriced to my mind, but to each their own. I'm not criticizing that, but I'm not ready to jump on the bandwagon and say Steve Jobs was such a good CEO and Bill Gates is just terrible, when from all I can tell, Bill Gates is behaving a lot better with his money. He's not just, I don't know, buying booze and hookers. He is giving tons to charity, and again, you could argue that's because he has to. But that shouldn't discredit the fact that he does, and he definitely gives more than he would have to. And again, you could also argue, like, he's building schools in Africa and equipping them with computers, that's just to get people hooked on Windows. Well, quite honestly, if he's built the school and given them computers, I don't quite care what his motives are in the end. As long as there's people who get school education which wouldn't have gotten it otherwise, and who get good school education and, like, computer-aided school education, which can definitely be advantageous, then I don't care if he did it to, at some point, be able to sell more PCs. I don't care, as long as he does it. It doesn't discredit the fact that he has built a school. And I've derailed this completely, so I'll make a cut here and I'll see you next time when we go into the next portal room. So, yeah, see you then.